Welcome everybody. Anthony Campitelli here with Enquiry Tracker for our Ready, Set, Go webinar. It's going to be a great way to get ready for the holidays, but also prep yourselves, we believe, for next year. So Greg, I'll let you go into slide mode and get started.
Absolute pleasure, Ant. Well, here today we've got Anthony Campitelli, CEO and co-founder of Enquiry Tracker, has spent 30 years in Silicon Valley with all the tech giants that you would know in senior product development and marketing roles. Myself, we've spent nearly 40 years, if I say that fast enough, Anthony, in education and not-for-profit sector. We co-founded Enquiry Tracker over a Moscow Mule about 5 years ago. We're thrilled to be joined by our Senior Business Development Manager, Carmel Brewster, who we were lucky enough to convince to come over from Ave Maria College and join us. And of course, Matt Luczek, who's the admissions manager at Hume Anglican Grammar, who one day we might be able to woo to join our team. Who knows? We might be able to do that. So, Anthony, a big warm welcome to Matthew and Carmel joining us today.
Yeah, well, welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So just to drill down, we were founded in 2018, but as Anthony likes to point out, it is only our software, the platform, has been solely architected and built ground up by Anthony's engineering team and purpose-built for K-12 schools. And we have a headcount of about 18 engineers in the engineering team, and we do 3 releases a year. So you're constantly getting features that are rolling into the product. Many of those features, Anthony, coming from schools that we're partnering with. And it's all about growing and managing enrollments and nurturing, as Matt will double emphasize when he chats, that families in that journey. The benefit, obviously, one of the numerous benefits you're going to get is instant data and analytics for the school. And just to remind people, one of the points of differences with Enquiry Tracker we like to emphasize is that all the staff who work for us and in the company come from an admissions and marketing background in schools. So when you ring up and need help, you're going to be helped by someone like Carmel, which I think is terribly important. Right now, our profile, Anthony, 300 schools across 3 sectors, Catholic, independent and state, 5 countries, nicely represented. Lovely to have a software product going out of Australia rather than into Australia. And most importantly, designed and built by educationalists. So, Anthony, I often like to ask, why the hell bother? Why do we want to track inquiries? Well, for me, more inquiries equals more enrolments. The more the managed the inquiry, the more likely they are to enroll. So that's increased stewardship equals increased conversion ratios. The more engaged that family due to the stewardship journey positively impacts on word of mouth in the community. Increased word of mouth increases brand enhancement. Increased brand enhancement increases inquiries. Increases inquiries increases demand for placement. And suddenly, Matt, we might have a wait list. And so suddenly we're being able to sort of control the pipeline in the way we want to steward it better. And obviously we'll unpack these with the team a little bit more. For many of us, and I'd really like to talk to Matt and Carmel about what their challenges were, but Anthony and I, when we surveyed lots of schools before we dare write a bit of code, talked to us about too many disparate systems that store inquiries, lack of resources, they're multitasking, they're doing everything. It's time consuming to enter data into a spreadsheet or a student management system. It's difficult to manage tour and open days, attendance and metrics. We're doing it in spreadsheets. Inability to profile future years by good demographic and geographic data. It's time consuming to create reports. It's hard to maintain those long-term relationships. And the old adage, lack of time to get things done. So Matt and Carmel, let's pause there and ask Matthew and Carmel, with your hat on at Ave Maria College, prior to joining Enquiry Tracker, what were your 4 key problems that you were trying to solve before you actually took on Enquiry Tracker?
Yeah, so for me, when I actually walked into my role, I had no data at all. I didn't know how many levels of inquiries we were getting each year. I didn't know if I was doing a good job and that we were going to get our enrolment numbers that were required. So I started that spreadsheet. and I had a lot of processes that were very manual. So for me, understanding the level of inquiries needed, what my conversion was, understanding if those inquiry numbers were low, what actions did I need to put in place in order to increase that, but also try to improve my conversion from one year to the next. Maintaining relationships. So understanding where my students were coming from. We have feeder schools that were feeding us those enrolments, and we needed to be able to maintain those inquiries, but really knowing where to put my energy, focus, the relationship building, and also seeing some emerging trends that were coming from other schools that weren't our feeder schools, and tapping into those as well. I was looking at streamlining processes. So how could I be more efficient? How could I reduce the amount of follow-up, chasing documents and stuff like that, and also capturing accurate information? And the last thing for me was really about improving customer service. So not only the customer service that I was providing, but our receptionist, anyone that came to the school, knowing why they were there, who they were going to visit, based on, who the personal tour had been allocated to, understanding who our alumni were, and really maintaining that consistent level of professionalism and providing that good level of customer service. So they were the 4 things that Enquiry Tracker really helped me be able to do in the long run, and move away from some of that manual processing that I was doing prior to not having had the system.
It's a handsome list, and it's great that Enquiry Tracker was able to solve most of those things for you. And Matt, I'm sure that there's some shared challenges there that you've probably heard. You're probably nodding your head and saying, yeah, that me too. And Matt, what were tell us what your problems were. What were you trying to solve when you first arrived, and perhaps pre the software platform coming into your use?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, firstly, can I just say thanks to Greg and Anthony and Carmel for having me, and welcome to all our guests as well. A little bit of a background. So Hume Anglican Grammar, we're a multi-campus. So we have 3 campuses, prep to year 12 co-ed school. So when I started here, a lot of my challenges similar to what Carmel mentioned, but for me, I guess, the core purpose of someone in my role is to ensure that the areas that I oversee are efficient, are organized, are professional, but also provide an accurate representation of your school's brand and what you're trying to achieve. So if I can think of, 4 key areas, the first one would obviously be inquiries. Okay, so we know that we always had a lot of families ringing up, speaking to us about the school. Where are these stored? How are they stored? Inquiries is often one of those things, and having worked in schools for well over 10 years, managing inquiries is one of those things that often falls into the, geez, in a perfect world basket, right? Yes, we know we should be managing it, but day-to-day life of a school, it gets pretty chaotic and pretty crazy. So that's one of the things that tends to fall to the bottom of the priority list. Secondly was applications. Anything we can do, we're getting, generally we can get up to 400 applications for any given intake, whether it's prep, whether it's year 7 each year. So anything we could do to cut back on the manual data entry of those applications was super important. But also more importantly is just how you're able to send that data to your school management system as well. And that's often a challenge. It's quite easy to build online web forms, but when your school has a core database, it's really important that you're able to get that information into the database without losing any of the details, and making sure that that process is really efficient. And then lastly, for me, analytics was a big one. And I think, most schools nowadays are really being a little more conscious about how they're spending that advertising money if they are promoting the school. So for me, it was really important to be able to have an area where I could review the analysis that was coming in about our school. And with that information, we're really able to target some advertising programs and make sure that our spending is really responsible and reliable each year.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Matt. And I'm sure there's a lot of head nodding, Anthony, out in the webinar. In fact, why don't in the Q&A or just say, yes, I agree, Matt, or yes, I agree, Carmel, or a lot of those things resonated for me. I might let Anthony just review those as they're coming in. So perhaps let us know. What's the solution? Well, you could ask for more staff. And Matthew, I am yet to walk into a school that says to me, doesn't matter how big or how small, you can have a small primary school with 75 kids in it. What's your enrollment at your school, Matt? You're under 2,000?
Well over 2,000 across 3 campuses, yeah.
Okay. And I'm sure Matt would say, Greg, I got plenty of staff. No worries. I'm yet to meet a school who says I've got plenty of staff. So you could ask for more staff. That's probably $100,000 request when you put in salary, insurances, superannuation. It's a big ask. You could do nothing and hope. And that's what most schools do. Number 2, I hope it will get better. It'll be better next term. It'll be better next year when I'm more organised. Most of us do that. And I'm guilty of that as too in other things in my life. Or you would investigate technology to help you. So talk about the hours. And I know Anthony's very big on hours. So I don't know how many hours that everyone works in a working week, but let's say you do 40 hours a week. And let's say you have 1 week off in the school holidays and a few weeks off over the summer, and it might be a little bit out. So if you do 44 weeks per annum, Carmel, that's 1,760 hours you've got to devote to your job. And that every hour is precious. Guess what? Most families complete application forms, book a tour forms, enrolment inquiry forms at night or on the weekend or in school holidays when you're not working. So that's really important. What if we could give you a resource that works 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, which equals 8,760 hours for a fraction of the cost of the staff member? You probably go, tell me a bit more. Because when you put the numbers like that, that's pretty powerful. So we talk about, we just got this little animated video produced a little while ago. I'll just play it, see what you think. It goes for about a minute. This was Carmel and this was Matthew, I think. Overworked, overwhelmed. And I do notice that was the American version. Oops, don't want to do that again. I do just notice that was the American version of the video. And so they spell inquiries with an I and enrollment with a double L. It's not a typo. So for us, I know, Anthony, this is really big, putting families, Matt, at the centre of the journey. I was a Year 7 coordinator for many years, Matt, and I was guilty of talking about, the incoming cohort. Well, they're not a cohort. They're individual families who should be treated as such, who are actually making one of the largest investments they'll ever make after buying a house. So the investment in your child's education over 13 years, times 3 kids maybe, that's a big investment. So, and Anthony, I'm going to let you just talk about the importance of this slide and the importance of the journey, perhaps before we get into perhaps a really light demo, and then come back and really let Matt and Carmel talk about their journey. So, Ant, over to you for this one.
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand that anytime you're marketing a product to a target customer, it's all about taking them on a journey, a story. It doesn't matter what they're buying, whether it's a vacuum cleaner or whatever. You're really trying to show how it solves a problem and delivers the results that you want. And when they're making these decisions, you've got to make sure you follow this journey. And I think this is a tried and proven path, and it works. And the way we like to say is, if you've got someone who's expressing interest in your school, make it easy for them to fill out forms. That's just a no-brainer, right? But make sure you ask the right questions. And I know Carmel and Matt will talk about what those questions might be. So that'll help fill out your pipeline, but make it personalized. Don't just send the automated email and saying, hi there, hi, Carmel, thank you so much. Use a conversation style and really amaze them when you bring them on premise. So when you're managing events, have check-in procedures, have your students, your ambassadors wearing their uniforms, welcoming families on, and you are going to get great word of mouth, right? And so over-deliver that experience. Make sure you follow up on those. Make sure you do have online applications. Make sure you don't forget to ask them to apply and communicate those deadlines, and then look at all the data and start again. Make sure you look at those insights. One of the things that we always recommend to schools is don't just ask why they chose to come to your school, ask why they chose not to come to your school, and use those insights to make changes. Fix your problems, improve your messaging, get your unique value proposition tightened right up, and you'll learn some amazing things. But the story here is the technology solves this problem. You've just got to make sense of the data. And we like to say we're here to help, but we're only here to help. You will have the answers and we'll help you get those right answers.
So what we might do is do a very light, quick demo, just literally 20 minutes, and then hand the floor back to Carmel and Matthew to sort of unpack it a bit. We will stop properly. We will allow Q&A. So please get your questions ready, and we'll get straight into it, Anthony. So I will just cut out of the PowerPoint slide for a moment and just jump back into Zoom. And if you could just let me know if you could still see the screen okay, Anthony, there?
Yeah, we're all good.
All right, lovely. And basically, when you sign into Enquiry Tracker, the data is all stored in the Google Data Centre in Sydney, Australia. Google have no access to the data, of course. And if I signed in, Anthony, we support Google sign-in as well. If I sign in, I'd be into the Sorrento Grammar environment, which is a fictitious school. So what we're showing you today here is not a live sandpit test site, but we're showing you a live site that all of our schools are using. And Anthony has a new release coming out in about 2 weeks' time, and it'll have a bunch of new features in it and a bunch of new capabilities. So Anthony, I might just let you just cherry pick some of the features on the top page, but I think we should start because Matt, Carmel, a lot of your inquiries would have come from your website, right? A lot of people register for open days and school tours, Matt, discovery tours, information evenings. Sure, they might ring up over the phone. Sure, they might walk in off the street. But if they did so, you would just add them to Enquiry Tracker. Is that true for your school, Matt, that a lot of inquiries are coming in because they're registering for events and things like that?
Absolutely. I think it also kind of mirrors the buying process for us in general society as well. I mean, most people, not everyone, but most people would check out something online first and then perhaps make a call. So for us, we know that, Google is usually the first port of call, then straight to the website, and then they'll look for anything that allows them to send that inquiry in without having to make that phone call, perhaps wait on hold, speak to someone. So majority of our inquiries do come through online, but one of the great things that we've also done recently, and we might sort of point this out when we're showing the demo, but we've actually gotten into the habit of providing an iPad to families when they do walk into the school, right? Because generally families would walk in, they might speak to the receptionist might come and grab someone from the admissions team. So in the meantime, whilst they're waiting, before we're going to have that chat to them face to face, handing them an iPad saying, great, if you're interested, would you mind filling in a few details whilst I go and grab someone from the admissions team? So that means we're able to capture that information. And then what it does is it allows me or a member of my team to really have a genuine conversation with a family as opposed to just a question and answer because I need to get all this data. So yes, online are the majority of inquiries, but there are also great ways that you could sort of feed those other methods into the system as well.
And having good standard operating procedures. So whether you are at Hume Anglican Grammar, where you could, perhaps make an enrolment inquiry, apply online, or in the top right-hand corner, you can book a tour. Whether you're Farn in Tasmania, where you could request a prospectus, take a tour, apply now, or whether you are at the Career and Success Academy in America, where you can book a tour, apply now, request an information pack. These are very similar experiences that most schools have. And if you clicked on any one of those buttons or menu options, you're going to be presented a form that can be branded in the school's livery that parents will fill out. And Anthony, of course, families the schools can control what fields are visible and what fields are mandatory. But I thought, Anthony, it might be a good starting point might be to pick a tour. Let's call it let's call one of these tours up here where we might have a few families registered for it. You know, like we've got this one that's actually fully booked on the Twilight tour. Or we've got the open day, we're only got 2 families attending, could be 200 families attending, and what have you, and register a family for one of these events coming up. What do you think?
Well, I think this talks to the journey. You know, like the idea is that, as Matt said, families are going to do their research. They're going to check you out on social. They're going to look at the various channels you've got. They're going to maybe watch some videos, etc. And then ultimately, they're going to make a decision. They're going to make an inquiry, like send me a info pack or a prospectus. Or your goal, and my advice to every school is get them to book a tour. If you can get a family on campus to experience your school, statistically speaking, you've got a better chance of converting them to an enrolled. So that's your goal. So I think Matt had it really presented well. They have a book a tour button right at the top on every page, which is impressive.
Yeah, that was really nice. And if that's appearing on every page, you're going to drive more traffic to your website. If you make these buttons really easy to find, you're going to massively increase your inquiries to conversion ratios. All right, Matt, Carmel, I might just sort of let us pick one of these. Anthony, I might just get you to talk about this language proposition here up the top, and Carmel, maybe speak about the benefits of this.
Well, yeah, okay, you go, Carmel.
Yeah, sorry. So all of our forms have support Google Translate, so you can choose a language and it will render the questions in that chosen language. You can toggle between those two as well. So that really does promote inclusive environment for your school. So Greg's now selected, was it the Twilight tour? No, the open day?
That one's fully booked. So you can set caps for events. And that one's grayed out. There's nothing more attractive, Carmel, than a capped event. Everyone wants to go to that one. So we've set a cap for that one. The open day only had a couple of people registered for it. And by the way, if you do sub tours, we can have sub tours enabled. So I'll just start filling out, Carmel. I'll let you talk about some of the benefits and the features of what I'm doing here.
Yeah, so we are capturing the parents' details here first, and you'll notice that we do have a question on there around the alumni, and I spoke about that earlier. So we're getting to know our families. Alumni know like the school knowing that they are a past student, and again, this really helps with that level of engagement that you're able to provide to the family. Would you like to send a copy of a prospectus? They will get a link to the information pack for your school as well. And we're also capturing their address. So here, that really will support, that geographic mapping. Where do our families live? With the student details, you can obviously capture the eldest right through to the youngest, and that really builds your pipeline. We support undeclared, not declared gender, as well. For the faith-based schools, religion will be important. What is the year of enrolment that they're looking for, the grade level of entry, and also the primary school or the childcare centre or the kindergarten that child is coming from. So this again also helps form that relationship building with the schools that the students are coming from. This is important marketing information. Matt mentioned earlier, where do you put your marketing dollars? Do you have a Facebook campaign? How many people are obviously going to be attending your tour? And now a few things actually will happen in the background, understanding that up until this point, the family has done all of the typing. So if we go back to the app.
Yeah, go for it, Carmel, keep going. Or Anthony or Carmel?
Yeah, it's also worthwhile pointing out, we remember we talked about asking the right questions on forms. So don't fall for the trap for putting too many questions on your forms, and use data entry aids so you get accurate reporting. So you saw when Greg was filling out that form, we do recommend that you have student names on your form. So that is that's forming your pipeline. Then you know, oh, they are interested in not next school year, but in 2024. And so that way you start to get more intelligent information about what's going on. And using those drop downs will give you accurate data. So highly encourage you to remember to do that, and only make the fields mandatory that are important to you. Don't make it too hard to fill out.
And
if I could just echo that quickly, Anthony, as well, just from a school's point of view, living it day to day. You know, if you think about your own experiences, for me, there's nothing worse than having to fill in an essay when I've just asked a simple question. So I would often recommend to any schools, yeah, keep it simple, but make sure you're getting that information that's really key, of key importance to yourself. And to do that, I think you need to have a really great understanding of your brand. And that sort of all links into the system as well. So we've found some really great benefit there.
So in terms of the charting and the analytics, this person's record, and Carmel said they did all the typing, and that what's happened is that record has flowed into Enquiry Tracker. That person's been thanked at night time personally with a calendar invite. The school's been notified, and a record has been created inside Enquiry Tracker for the child and the parent, and all the fields that they filled out has been captured. The data is sitting in here, which is your marketing funnel. The data is sitting in your admissions funnel. They're here at 81. They're not an applicant yet, and they're not enrolled, and they haven't declined. They could decline, they could be enrolled. They will move down this journey as Anthony and I enroll them. There's Dota Tomlin, who registered for an event and also at the same time requested a prospectus, which too has been sent to Dota. And you can see by the hyperlink that a record's been created for Dota and her child. If we compare this year to last year's data, I can see that she is now in here. And if I wanted to bring up my 3-year average, I could bring up that. If I could want to bring up my 5-year average, I can bring up that. And if I wanted to look at that as a column chart, I could look at it as a column chart. For example, the event that she registered for, Anthony, was the open day, which only had 2 families. It could have been 20 families. It could have been 200 or 2,000 families. The number is irrelevant. So right now we've got 3 families, 3 students, and 8 RSVPs. This is the number that's good for catering. This is what the marketing and admissions team want to know. So Anthony, let's just go and check this family in. And I know, Carmel, you used to do a lot of this stuff at your school. So why don't you kind of just talk us through some of these elements and how you used to do it with your kids at your school?
Yeah, so we had a student ambassador program where our senior students, our Year 9 students, were greeting families at the gate, asking them simply, introducing themselves and asking them for their surname. So you can do a simple search by the surname, having put the app into a secure check-in mode. So once you've actually located the family, you can ask them a few more questions and do some data verification. We didn't make the form too long initially, but we may have some time to actually capture some additional information now, be it the date of birth of the child, maybe some of the interests that they have, as you have some special programs that you run at your school, and you may want to invite the family to your school in the future in order for them to immerse themselves in some of the programs that you do offer. What's really handy here is being able to filter returning families and first-time families, because you may want to separate the groups because you're going to maybe run a slightly different tour for those families that are returning as opposed to those that are first-timers.
And of course, all these families would have got a personalised reminder email, and really importantly, the next day, they're all going to get the personalised thank you email with a link to apply. So these families haven't applied yet to come to your school. So why don't we drive them, Anthony, to the online application process? And you might have a button on your website that says apply now, or all of your applications might be by invitation only, regardless of how it works. And Anthony, really importantly, regardless of how many steps you have in the enrolment journey or how many forms people have to fill out, we can do them all. So some schools have a simple application form and that's it. Some people have a complex application form and that's it. Some people have kind of an expression of interest, put your name down and maybe pay a deposit. Then later on, we'll make you a letter of offer form that you have to sign. And then later on, you have to fill out an enrolment form. So whether it's a 1-step, 2-step, 3-step, or 4-step process, Enquiry Tracker can cater for it all. So Anthony, I think the scenario now is we get this family to apply, don't we? We look up a segmented group of people, which might be, I don't know, I think we put this family into year 7, 2023. Well, how many of those have I got? Well, I've got 238. Well, how many of these kids haven't enrolled yet? Well, I've got 81 of them. And I wonder how many of them are children of alumni, girls, like robotics, and live in Melbourne. Well, I won't do such a complex search, but I could. I could simply go to interests here and let me just pick up, I don't know, robotics. And I've got 17 of those kids. So now I could broadcast out an email that says, here's the next date for the next NASA launch that you might like to watch. Or here's a nice YouTube clip on robotics. Or here's a little bit about our robotics program, because you've told us your daughter loves robotics. So now we are remembering that and we care about that record. And if we just want to go and have a little look at the Tomlin family's record, remember, as Carmel said, they have done all the typing. So if Dota did ring up about Yanni, this is the profile. And the next, Yanni Tomlin, mum is an alum, date of birth, year level of entry, starting year, Darwin Primary, loves robotics and studio art. Mum is an alum, could check out that. We could get a sibling data if she rang up. I've got an activity log that's being built. But right now, let's get her to apply. And I might hand over the next part of this conversation to Carmel and Anthony to talk us through how this works. We send them an email, Carmel, with the instructions of what to do, birth certificate, baptism certificate, whatever they need. And the email goes out with a link in it to apply, and I'll hand it over to you both.
Okay. So once they get to your website, hit the apply now button, there are instructions there for them to enter the same email that they've used previously, as we may already have information for that family, so we can pre-populate the form. They're not having to give us that information again. And you may want to also instruct them as to, have a birth certificate, your immunisation statement and school reports ready. So Greg will now receive a 6-digit code, which is part of that authentication process, where we're ensuring that whoever has access to that email, therefore receives the code, is able to view the information that we will pre-populate onto the application form. And you can also see here, that we've got Google Translate as well.
Yeah, and Anthony, did you want to just sort of talk a bit more about that verification process and why it's important from a security standpoint?
Well, we're not going to allow anyone to type in anybody's email address and start an application for that family, number one. So that we do send that code to the valid email address, and so that people have to retrieve it. And the reason to do that is so we can pull up data, because one of the things we heard is, we really don't want to have families to enter in all the same information that they've already entered. And you see Greg's already, Greg as Dota Tomlin entered that information on the school website. So you really have done nothing, right? And also know about there's one student, and of course he could start an application for another child if he wished, but let's just start that application. And now what's going to happen is we're going to fill out a new form here. And this is using the apply module in Enquiry Tracker, where you can have very customizable forms to match the way you collect data for your school, and ask the questions, the answers, whether they're mandatory, not. You can have all of these, and they're broken down with a lot of the fields that are required for whether it's census data or your own school's requirements. But you can tailor this, move fields around, et cetera, and gather all this information without you having to send them a PDF or some other online form. It's all getting captured in Enquiry Tracker.
Importantly,
I know Matt and Carmel, you've probably done some extensive customizing of your own forms for your school as well, right? Would that be true, Matt?
Yeah, definitely. I know when we came to you guys to discuss the application forms, we were really big on wanting to ensure that, the information that we currently get on the paper form is able to be collected on the online form, and then is able to be sent into our school management system. So we do customize it quite a bit to make sure it's constantly meeting our needs. I just want to quickly go back as well, if I can, and I hate to sort of jump ship here, but one of the things that I did want to mention with regard to events or any time that you're able to speak to somebody who's fielded an online inquiry. My advice, just from a day-to-day point of view in terms of best practice, would be to double check the email address. So you might start by asking somebody their name. Let's just say they've come to sign in at your event. You might start by asking someone their name. I would then lead with email address. And the reason for that is because I'm sure, pretty much everyone working at schools has fallen victim to, gmail.com, C-O-N, right? And all of a sudden those emails aren't going through, or a number is missing, or a small typo in an email address. So always use that opportunity to verify their email addresses, because we've found that obviously, given that links into their application form, if they do decide to apply, you want to make sure that information is accurate. I did want to mention that, but yes, definitely we've customized our form quite a bit, and that constantly changes as well. There are times where we think, actually, let's make this field mandatory now, or we're not really doing much with this information here, let's make that optional. So it's great to have that flexibility.
Importantly, if we'd asked the second parent's contact information in a previous interaction with the family, they would all be pre-populated here as well. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I'll close that up. If you're using Synergetic, it likes to know the spousal relationship between the two people, which we can do extra special mapping into Synergetic based on how you like data to flow in. Emergency contact details, obviously. Anthony, Carmel, if I skip ahead, it helps me and says, hey, hang on a second, you missed something. And people do miss things. So we try to help them with these red flags, but pretty much every form that you'll ever do consists of student information, parent information, possibly document upload, maybe T's and C's, possibly a signature, and maybe a payment. Those are universal. And so it's going to be a combination therein. So whatever form you wish to run, a scholarship form, a boarding form, a domestic application form, a waitlist form, it doesn't matter what form you want. You can create it inside Enquiry Tracker. Obviously, Carmel, we have the issue where there's split families, and we can catch up with signatures later on. And I can put in a little note here. I've got to go back and look at the missing documents that I didn't upload. And Anthony and Carmel, I'll let you talk about what sort of documents we can upload, what sort of documents we prevent from uploading. That would be really handy whilst I upload this birth certificate, which obviously I'll do now.
So I just wanted to make a note that as the family puts their information in, it is saved. So if they are distracted, they come back to it at night because they've realised that they don't have access to the birth certificate or one of these documents, that they are able to continue the application without having lost the information that they've already provided by going through that authentication process again. And it does support up to 10 megabytes file size and different file formats such as a doc, JPEG, PDF as well. So Anthony mentioned earlier about finding out why are they selecting your school, and you can limit that to, maybe the top 3 reasons why they've selected your school, and this becomes really useful information so that you can see if that unique selling proposition that you have is actually understood by the families as well.
And Carmel, if I could, again, just my advice, I would absolutely limit that section. The reason for that is because we've all experienced families that are super enthusiastic and super keen to join the school, and they'll just go ahead and tick everything. We've chosen school for every reason. Yep. Now, whilst that's great, and that might be the case, from a marketing point of view, it's not as beneficial. What you want to try to do is find out the reasons that are perhaps dominating the landscape a little more. So I would definitely recommend limiting that to, no more than three reasons.
Yeah, in fact, Matt, I remember you made that suggestion after we did our very first release of the product, and I'm proud to say that we actually listened and we added that feature in there. So now you can cap any of those to at a minimum number and a maximum number. So you could say, hey, only pick 2 and no more than 5. Like, you could do stuff like that, which is great, especially if you're uploading documents. You say, hey, I need a minimum of 2 documents here. That's when it comes in handy.
We don't support zip files as other selected file types because they tend to more likely carry viruses and so on. Anthony, talk to us about the payment gateway. What's it required for a school to set up a payment gateway, and how does it work?
You just set up a free Stripe account with Stripe. We integrate with Stripe at the moment. Stripe does integrate with I think nearly all banks around in the world. So their fees are very nominal. They charge a small percentage per transaction and a small dollar per transaction. I can't remember what the exact numbers are, but it's very, very competitive and affordable. And I want to point out, Greg, in our upcoming release, we're adding support. There's a ton of features getting added, but as you were just talking about that, we add support for discounts. So, based on questions that you include or how they answer on the form, you as a school administrator are able to apply a discount, which was another lot of feedback we got from schools. So the theme here is we're constantly listening to our customers and our prospects to say what they need in a product to help make their lives easier every day. And I'm pretty proud to say that we do that pretty regularly.
So the form has been submitted. This happened, let's say, at 9 o'clock at night. A family could have toggled between languages as they were completing the form. They can view their submitted application. They can print it out. They will have also received an email in their inbox right now from the school, and they can then, with a tracking link in that email, to monitor the progress of their application. You at the school would have received the alert. So Matt, when he comes in at work the next day, clearly he would have logged out, Anthony. He would have gone home, he would have logged out. Matt, you would have come into work in the morning, you would have signed in, you might have grabbed a hot cup of coffee, and your email would tell you that you had, of course, an application from the Tomlin family. And of course, you could click on that email and it would drive you straight into that child's record immediately. But what's really interesting, Anthony, just before we do that, this family is now in here. For the astute members of the webinar, that was 155 before, it's now 156. In a minute, that will go to 119. And here, this went up to 81. It's now gone back to 80, and that's gone to 38. In a minute, that will go to 37, and that'll go to 119. So let's just quickly enroll her, and then let's end the demonstration, because that will leave us 15 minutes for Q&A for Matt and Carmel to talk about analytics and other features that they want to chat to you about. But there's Yanni Tomlin's record. By the way, I can easily see how many in-progress applications I've got, because as Carmel mentioned, people get distracted. And right now, I've got a whole bunch of in-progress applications. I've got 99 of them, actually. All those families, Carmel would have received a reminder, and the school can see where they got up to. And I can click on this preview button and say, hey, you got up to page 4, but you haven't hit submit. And again, now we've got this one from Yanni. I just click on this quick record. I'll just spend another minute on this before we open up the floor to the team. There's the original application. It can't be edited for an audit trail perspective. Here's the one that we're going to review. And Matt puts that into review. Time clock changes. We've got 17 minutes left in the webinar today. We will finish on time. Mum rings up and says, I think I made a mistake. We're not from Afghanistan, we're from Albania. Okay, all right, fine. And they probably would have filled out all the citizenship information, which we didn't do. My son has also got, or my daughter's also got diabetes. Okay, fine. I'm making changes. But the best bit is document upload. So is this a birth certificate? Isn't it a birth certificate? I look at it, I verify it. Let's say there's a certificate here, I verify it. Let's say there's one here, I verify it. Let's say this one's missing, and let's say this one isn't a faith certificate, it looks like a Christmas card. So I'm going to mark that as invalid. And here I get a series of green lights, amber lights, and red lights. Eventually, Matt, we want a full set of green lights. We move it into the pending. We might finalize the application. And what do we want to do with this? We want to waitlist them. We want to make them an offer. What do we want to do? Let's make them an offer. We say it now cycles through the next stage of the journey, which might be a simple email saying you've got a place, or it might be another form to fill out. So let's say it's another form to fill out with another signature and another payment that cycles through the system. And now their offer accepted. And now maybe they have to sign an enrollment contract or something. So we could do another form if we wish. But for the purposes of this exercise, they're now offer accepted. They're now enrolled. Let's export that into Synergetic now, Matt, or export it into TAS, or export it into School Pro, or whatever your student information system is. We can try to get it there for you. And if I hit save, Matt, I'll finish up now because I know you guys want to talk about some of the analytics. I'll go back to the dashboard. And speaking of analytics, 119. So I'm not telling porcupines. There they are there, they're there, and they're there. And that is the marketing wheel, and there's my conversion ratio. And here for the admissions, they're there. And if the family rang up and said, I'm not coming, we track decline by reason. We track reason for selection, decline by reason. How did you hear about us? Where do you live? And what primary, elementary school or kindergarten do you go to? If you understand those 5 metrics, you are in a really critical part to make strategic decisions, Matt, for your school. So, Matthew, I'm going to hand the floor back to you and Carmel to maybe, I can still keep sharing the screen, maybe talk through about some of how you use analytics, and maybe we just do a bit of a walk through some of the analytics that you and Carmel found useful for when you're doing your reports.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Greg. And look, what I would encourage as well is, please, if anyone has any questions, I'd rather, respond to things that are on your mind or that are most relevant to you. But before I touch on analytics, I did want to mention, Greg, one of the, smaller features that, you may not take initial notice of, but I know we've found it extremely helpful here at Hume Anglican Grammar, is just that ability to go into a pending application and help a family on the phone. Now, as simple as the forms can be, we always know that there are families that struggle with technology. What's been really helpful for us is to be able to go through that stage, that step of the application, and really immediately identify where that family's gone wrong, why their form's not working. There's nothing worse than feeling helpless on your end of the phone when you have a parent calling you saying, I can't submit the form, I've done everything right, and I don't know what's wrong. You do feel a little bit stuck. So what we find super easy is to be able to go into the application. As Greg mentioned, just clicking through the steppers, you'll get the red error mark. Great, there it is. I can see you have filled in this section incorrectly. I can see you've missed a section. Can you just go back to section 2 and scroll down to this area, and you should be fine. It makes those phone calls a lot easier, but also it means that those are calls potentially that can be handled from front reception or from a member of your general staff, your admin team, without having to go further up the line, go into any technical issues. A lot of the time, and again, I know that schools would have experienced this, one slight issue and people think the world's ending, right? Oh, there's a big issue with the form. The form's broken. We've got some big tech issues. No, it's pretty straightforward. I can just see here you've forgotten to list your current school. Are you able to just go back in and fix that, and you should be fine. Brilliant. And so that's been really helpful. Just touching on analytics, again, from a Hume Anglican Grammar point of view, in terms of best practice, the biggest ones for me, the ones that I've found to be really, really helpful are the geographic analysis. So, Greg, if you just click the geographic tab there, what's great is this maps for schools where their inquiries, where their applications are coming from. And I love being able to filter this down to specific year levels, specific intake years. And that tells me, what areas we perhaps need to do a little bit more work in. I think most schools would have an idea of strategically where they're trying to head in the next 5, 10 years, 3 to 5 years. Sometimes you might notice an area of growth, a real strong opportunity there. So for me, I've loved being able to go in and see where those gaps are. But also, more importantly, check back in a year's time, in 24 months' time, and just see the improvement. That's been brilliant for me from a marketing point of view, because I'm able to then go to my senior leadership and say, look, 12 months ago, we said that we wanted to increase inquiries and interest from area X and area Y. And so as a result, we invested X amount of dollars into these advertising campaigns. And if you look at the data now, you can see that there's a massive increase in the number of map points that are coming from that area. So we know that advertising has been successful because it has led to, some new leads, some new interest inquiries. If it was still blank, if we weren't seeing that improvement, then all of a sudden we're looking at that money, and is it really a responsible method of spending? And then by extension, being able to find out how families are hearing about your school. Now, we know most of the time, at least 60 to 70% of the time, word of mouth is going to be the key reason. But you do get some great information after word of mouth, because that can help you, I guess, sometimes cull the amount of different advertising campaigns you run. I know personally for us, a big one's print media, and this is no disrespect to anyone that does a lot of print media, but for us, it seems like every day there's a new schools guide that's coming out. that, wants a print ad. So for us being able to see where our families are hearing about our school just gives me that ammunition to then go and scale back. And also, when you do have your manager or your principal come to you and say, hey, how come we're not advertising in this medium anymore? Well, the data over the last 2 years tells us that little to no families really use this as the main way that they heard about our school. So that I find really helpful as well. But Carmel, I know your previous school obviously was a Catholic school with a strong set of selection criteria. So I assume there's probably some different benefits that you found really helpful as well.
Yeah, so I second that as far as the geographic data really helped form those strategic decisions, those postcode gaps where you could maybe focus a Facebook campaign. But for me, I really liked the schools, previous schools data. You can obviously classify them into Catholic, public or independent. But I knew for each of our feeder schools, how many girls were enrolled at each school. So I was looking at, are those inquiries, am I getting 50% or 60%? And where they were quite low, it was easy for me to pick up the phone, call that primary schools and find out where are those people making inquiries to if they're not making an inquiry at our school, and really just seeing those emerging trends, because then we were getting schools outside of our feeder zone as well. So just developing those relationships, and I would do those primary school visits and that as well. The other one that I like is the inquiries by month. So looking at, okay, I've got an open day, or I've done, several tours in this month. Are those inquiries increasing based on the activity or the marketing initiatives that I've actually conducted during that month? So that really also helps you sort of see, are there some events that were more successful than others? So that's the geographic inquiries by month, and the school data or analytics were the ones that I used mostly. And you joked before, Greg, about, Matt coming into school and logging into Enquiry Tracker. And I have to honestly say that it was the first app that I would open on my desktop daily. I use this a lot more than Synergetic. And I constantly looked at those levels of inquiries that were coming through for a particular intake year and year level.
Just touching on that one, Carmel, as well. Greg mentioned the automatic notification that comes in when an application is submitted. Now, I know we'd love to, think and assume that all applications are treated equally when they're submitted. Obviously, the truth is they are not, and you might get one application that's for 3 years in advance, 4 years in advance. And obviously, the priority for that one is going to be a little lower than something that is for next year in a intake level that you're really looking to fill. So what I found super handy was being able to see those notifications as they came through, being able to forward it onto a member of my team, or even contact that family myself almost immediately. First thing, 9 a.m. Yep, I'm going to give this one a call because, hey, we were trying to fill year X next year, and this is someone that's interested. Let's give them a call. It may not even be an application. It might be an inquiry. Someone's just sent through a quick inquiry about year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10. Hey, let's give them a call and have that chat with them now straight away, because that's a year level that we're really looking to fill. And it just means you're able to sort of balance your own workload and organize your own daily tasks a little greater as well.
Yeah, but it's also developing those email templates that get sent out. So once they've filled out that application form, you control the messaging, and you may want to stipulate on that email that gets sent out that, if your enrolment is for 2025, please allow 7 days before we contact you, say, for example. One of the questions has come through from Leah: how well does Enquiry Tracker integrate with PC schools? Anthony, but I'm happy to say that it's all working really well. But Anthony,
no, you know this very well.
I do. I have done some integrations with PC schools and Enquiry Tracker.
Yeah, we seamlessly integrate it. You can transfer directly from Enquiry Tracker directly straight into PC School.
Yeah, we're a certified partner, Leah, and there's quite a few of our schools already using PC Schools. And Anthony was at the conference recently in Queensland. And we have a great relationship with PC Schools. Look, there's dozens and dozens of student information systems around the world. We've got schools all over the world. It's your data. We want that data to go to where you need it to go. So you will never find an objection from us, Anthony. We have an API for those who are the more tech savvy on the call today. We want you to be able to get that data to where you need it to go. So in other words, we'll work closely with you to make that happen. I'm just conscious of the time, Ed. I'm going to glance. We've got 5 minutes to go. I just want to make sure that our audience who have stayed loyal for the entire webinar, thank you. It is being recorded. Have a chance to ask Carmel and Matt in particular questions that really they want to know. By the way, I know, Matt, you often talk about all those certificates that have been uploaded, baptism certificates, birth certificates, residency certificates, all that stuff. Now, if that stuff is being sent in via email, Anthony, it's not secure. If it's being left at reception, it's not secure. So if I wanted to get the applications for a cohort group, let's just say, that have been finalised, if I bring up the 100 applications that have been finalised for Year 7 2023, and I wanted to grab all the documents, I can simply export all the documents. It'll create one zip file with 100 directories inside, for the student name on each directory, and inside each directory will be the relevant certificates. So that's very powerful. That can be dropped into your document management system or whatever standard operating procedures are. So Anthony, Carmel, Matt, let's deal with any final questions before we finish on time. And there is a special offer, Anthony, for all the people who have joined today. I want to make sure we announce that special offer before we finish up.
Okay, that sounds good.
So I guess, Greg, the last thing that I'd say before I leave it back with you guys is, what's really important for me and someone in my role is, not just collecting the data, collecting the information, but it's what you do with that information that is so crucial, particularly, and I know for someone who's maybe at the front desk or the front line of an admissions team or a marketing team, collecting that data is super beneficial. But for me and for anyone that's in that leadership position, what you do with that information is critical. And what I love most about Enquiry Tracker is just it really helps us use that information for greater good, to further our brand, to really kind of achieve our own strategic goals, which is amazing.
Thank you, Matt. Any comments, closing comments from you, Carmel and Anthony, before we give the special offer?
I'll just finish off by saying I obviously loved it enough to come and work for Enquiry Tracker. It is very easy to use, but I think I really pride myself on the fact that having worked in a school, I am able to really impart my knowledge, help schools with workflows and processes, really understand your language and understand the role that you're conducting, but also how Enquiry Tracker can make that process and really improve that level of service that you're providing to your families. And we do listen. So, we've mentioned today how a lot of the schools have actually been actively involved in the features that we continue to release. And, we acknowledge that and really work closely with all of our clients. So,
Anthony, I know you're passionate about customer service and white glove support. And support through training is one of the things you've prided ourselves on in establishing the company, isn't it, in terms of that after-sales support?
Oh, we make sure our schools succeed. There's no question. Like, we put in every bit of effort with people like Carmel and Christy and Sandra's for onboarding, but making sure we're giving counsel on the way. It's not just here's a tool, plug it in. We'll look at your website, we'll make recommendations on, like Matt has shown earlier on with the Hume website. Those, we just make recommendations and hopefully schools listen and make the changes and magic happens. I like to say with Enquiry Tracker, it's just about adding water and adding water in your inquiries, because everything else is just there. We like to provide you a solution that works. And that's what, I stand behind that with the team.
And Anthony, I'm hoping you can see my screen here. And hopefully we can just talk about the special offer before we close. Can you see that the costing structure there, Anthony?
Yep. We all got it, right?
So to establish Enquiry Tracker is $3,000 plus GST. It allows you to have unlimited. This is very rare in the software world. unlimited users, unlimited access, unlimited support, unlimited training. You say that fast, it means nothing. You think about it, it's extraordinary. We're very passionately committed to professional development. We have free fortnightly professional development classes. I co-host a program called Ticker Education, or Ticker Ed for short, which is about thought leadership in education. And we share those 12-minute shows that are broadcast globally for you to share with your world, whether it's on gender equity, whether it's on a movement towards ungrading, or whether it's delivering education in a country afflicted by war. These are extraordinary programs that you can share with your world that you get for free. In terms of the annual subs fees, if you're a small school and you're under 500, that's what you pay plus GST. Mid-tier school, you get a bit of a discount. That's what you pay. Our pricing was really structured around this 1,000 to 2,000 point. That's what most of the schools are paying. And there's a couple of schools that are very large. They're paying a little bit more. But again, you work out how big you are. And the offer is that if you start with Enquiry Tracker now, we will charge you your establishment fee, but we will not charge you any licensing fees until January next year when you come back from the summer break. So you can be set up for summer, because the idea being you can get set up now, you can do the onboarding call now, we can create your installations now, you can start capturing all your leads over the summer break, and know that all those people are going to be thanked and get lovely email messages from you. So your inbox is not out of control when you get back on day one. It's every one of those people have heard from you, and it's all been followed beautifully. So that's the big offer. And November and December, absolutely free at no charge. Obviously, all you got to do is get in contact with one of our team, Carmel at enquirytracker.net, Anthony without the H at enquirytracker.net, Greg at enquirytracker.net, very easily. Maybe even one day, everyone, Matt at enquirytracker.net. Don't tell anyone. Shh, Matthew, don't tell anyone.
We'll see. We'll see how we go. It depends on what people thought of my efforts today. Yeah, no questions. Nobody asked me a question. I'm feeling very lonely.
Well, you covered a lot of ground, both of you, so thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Well, what we might do, Anthony, is do a formal close. And thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Carmel. Thank you, Anthony, for joining us.